Homesteading. It's something that's been gaining popularity rapidly, and for good reason. The idea of living off the land, being self-sufficient, and relying less on the grid is an attractive one, especially in today's world. But not everyone is cut out for homesteading. The question is, are you? Hey y'all, I'm Renee, and welcome to Tater Town. When you think of homesteading, you might imagine a picturesque farm with rolling hills, a big garden, and a family working together to grow their own food and raise their own animals. But the reality of homesteading is far from rainbows and puppy dogs. In fact, it can be downright brutal. The time commitment required to successfully homestead is enormous. We're talking hours upon hours of physical labor, 7 days a week, and it doesn't start at 9 a.m. and end at 5 p.m. So if you're thinking about homesteading, let's look at some misconceptions to see if it's really something you feel you can commit to. Because after all, it is a commitment. Fingers are getting cold out here. Why did I decide to record this out here? I don't know. Speaking of commitments, if you like this video or any of my videos, please be sure to subscribe and hit that like button and notification bell. It really means a lot, and it does help keep me going so I can bring you more and more videos that will help you do those things you never thought you could or would do. Okay, it's not really a commitment, but you get the idea. Now let's jump back in. First, what is homesteading? Well, a homestead is defined as a house and surrounding area belonging to a family. Pretty generic, right? But in today's terms, homesteading is basically where you live a self-sufficient lifestyle with minimal help from others. It's mostly associated with growing and preserving your own food, doing your own home maintenance and improvements, and in general, living frugally. It's a wonderful way to live, but before you jump into it, let's go through my top 8 misconceptions that will help you decide if you still want to do it. The first misconception is that you need land or acreage. Not true. While it is helpful if you want to grow food for a large family, or if you want to sell some of it to make a profit, it's not necessary, especially if it's just you or a small family, or if you plan on supplementing from the grocery store. You can certainly do it in a suburban or even an urban environment. You can grow fruits and vegetables indoors. I do it. It will definitely require more planning and thinking outside the box, but I know people who do it successfully. Bottom line is, it can be done. Second misconception is that you need to be totally self-sufficient. I really prefer the term self-reliant. There are definitely those that are able to live completely without assistance from others, but for most of us, we're still gonna need others, whether it's for electricity, clothing, medical care, etc. You know, for me, I can make and fix a lot of things, but I still need to buy individual components from others. I don't feel that that's any less empowering. Another misconception is that you need solar, wind, or some other source of energy not provided by a power company. Again, reference what I just said about self-sufficiency. There is nothing wrong with not having solar or wind, but you certainly can. And you can also have some things that run on solar and rely on the power company for other things, more of a hybrid setup. We do that here. I've got a bunch of things that run on solar, but most everything, especially the more powerful or the things that require more power or current, I will run on house electric. Another misconception, and I don't really know if this is much of a misconception, but one of the things most people think is that, okay, you can homestead in any location or state. And while that is technically true, some states are friendlier to homesteading than others. For example, states like Tennessee, Idaho, Texas, Missouri, they really are helpful when it comes to homesteading, and a lot of the laws are pro-homesteading. It doesn't mean you can't do it in other states. You just have to pay more attention to local and state regulations. And of course, doing things in an urban or suburban environment are going to be more restrictive than in a rural setting. I can't say rural either fast. The biggest example I can give you is collecting rainwater. In some states, even if you own a ton of land, collecting rainwater can be heavily regulated, if not completely restricted. However, in a state like Tennessee, there's no restriction, and they even encourage you to collect rainwater, probably because it rains so much here. So you need to keep that in mind and do your research before you decide to go ahead with your plans. The same goes with keeping livestock. Make sure your local government allows you to have whatever you'd like to raise. And on that subject, one question you need to answer is this. If you're allowed to keep chickens, goats, cows, sheep, whatever, is there a veterinarian nearby that can treat that animal? This is especially true for chickens or any bird for that matter. I'm usually pretty good at keeping those things in mind, but when I had my first chicken get sick, I was shocked that my farm vet, the vet that comes out here all the time and treats the cows, the donkeys, the horses, well, they didn't treat chickens. And thankfully, there is a vet nearby who specializes in birds and exotics, so I felt very lucky. But there's so many of you out there that I've heard from whose closest avian vet is like 2 or 3 hours away, if not further than that. And I know some of you are like me. You love your animals and you want to keep them safe and healthy. And it can feel really helpless and frustrating knowing that you can't get care for your sick animal. So please keep that in mind before you make that investment. The next misconception is that you're going to save so much money homesteading. Yeah, you will on some things, but not on others. It all depends on the choices you make and if you already have the equipment you need to get started and maintain a homestead. I mean, if you look at what I have, it may appear that you'll need a lot of money, but I can tell you that I plan everything meticulously. My husband and I bought this land almost 20 years ago, and we've painstakingly built everything you see over that time, including the houses we live in. That means we actually built the houses. We did subcontract some things out, but most everything else we did ourselves. And our outbuildings, the newest ones we have are only new because we had wind damage to some of the existing structures. So if they were covered by insurance, we went ahead and let them take care of building or rebuilding the new structures. But pretty much everything else we've done ourselves with the help of friends and family. I even went so far as to get my EPA certification to handle refrigerants. And that way we were able to install all of our AC units, and I'm the one that maintains them. We also designed and built our heating system, so that saved a ton of money. But it took us 7 years to get our certificate of occupancy, and we still have a lot to do. It's another reason why I'm doing these videos, because there's still a lot to do, so I'll have a lot of things I can make videos about. Everything we do is on a budget, and that means you have to be patient if you don't have all the money up front. Here's another example. It's absolutely wonderful having fresh eggs every day, and I really do love my chickens. Gosh, if you've never had chickens, I had chickens a long time ago when I was like 10 years old for a very short period of time. But if you've never had chickens, my gosh, they have such amazing personalities. But I digress. Again, while it's wonderful to have fresh eggs every day, I did the math, and a dozen of my eggs equates to about $10 when I factor in feed and care. But I also buy organic feed and do things that you don't necessarily have to do. And that's totally okay. And cost does get cheaper with scale. So the more chickens you have, the more of a cost break you can have by buying in bulk. There's a reason why factory farmed eggs are way less costly. On the flip side, Those chickens live in horrendous conditions, and when something like avian flu hits them, it has a devastating impact on the cost and supply of those eggs. I'd much rather spend more money on eggs from happy chickens that are essentially my pets than support industrial agriculture. I've also come to the realization that the cost of maintaining things around here is inversely proportional. And what that means is the chickens are super cheap to buy, but their living expenses are high. And the Highland cows that we have, they were expensive, but they require very little on a day-to-day basis. Another misconception about homesteading is that it's only for those who were born and raised on a farm. But the truth is, anyone can learn to homestead, regardless of their background or experience level. I never lived on a farm. My husband, on the other hand, was raised on a farm in South Dakota, so he definitely has experience. But we each bring a different perspective on how to do things, which tends to produce a better way of doing it compared to if we were to do it in our own individual ways. Wow, it's really cold. I had to do this on, well, this is the second coldest day so far this year. Tomorrow's going to be the coldest. All right, another misconception for those of you who have families. One, you don't need to do this if you have a family. You can be a single person doing it. You can do it as a couple, whatever you feel like doing. But I will say this, it may or may not bring your family closer together. Okay, it definitely will bring your family closer together. And that's a great thing if you and your family work well together. But I do think that the COVID pandemic made us realize that being with your family or significant other all the time can be a blessing or a curse. And let's not forget, homesteading, especially in a rural environment, can be incredibly isolating. You might find yourself sacrificing social connections and community ties in favor of the solitary life on the homestead. But there's also the community building aspect of homesteading. Yes, you might be giving up some social connections, but you'll also be gaining a sense of camaraderie with like-minded individuals who share your values and your vision. Another misconception is, I won't ever have to work a 9-to-5 job again. Yeah, this one is totally true. Why? Because your job will now be 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and you may need to work a 9-to-5 or part-time job to pay for other things you need. Taking vacations will require more planning and possibly even hiring someone to take care of everything while you're gone. And things break a lot. And the animals don't always do what you want, when you want.
What are you doing? That's amazing. Lil.
And then there's the unfinished projects while having to start something else. Most days, it can feel like everything, everywhere, all at once. And it's not always sunny and warm, like right now. But you gotta get out there and take care of things even when it's freezing, dark, and muddy. Here's some examples. The day after I had shoulder surgery, Dahlia got out and it took me 4 hours to find her with the help of 2 different people having to drive me around because I couldn't drive. And I still had to be the one to get her halter on with one arm. Here's another one. One very cold, wet March, we had some trees get knocked down because of the weather and they knocked down our fence line. And Frank and Ivy got out onto my neighbor's huge cattle ranch. I had COVID and was out for days, driving around trying to find them and get them home. Oh, and Murphy's Law. Both of those instances, my husband was out of town working. And that's where community comes in. because without my friends, family, and my neighbors, it would have been much more difficult, almost impossible to do it on my own. Now, I will say there are several things you do need. You will need to be motivated, because most of the times you'll need to do things you really don't want to do, but you'll have to find that energy deep inside you to make them happen. You need a good work ethic, and that means you have to be reliable, focused, and organized. Okay, sometimes I'm none of those things, but I try to be most of those things as much as I can. And that also means that sometimes your needs come after everything else. I'm not saying you don't matter, but some days you may need to wait to have a cup of coffee or tea, or eat dinner until after you've fed all your animals, or fix the leak in the water main, or chase your jump fencing cows at 11:30 on a Friday night. You also need to learn patience, and for me, that's probably the biggest one. But despite the challenges, many people find, including me, we find that the benefits of homesteading far outweigh the drawbacks. For one, there is the sense of sustainability. Knowing that you're producing your own food and relying less on the industrial agriculture system. Of course, there have been plenty of setbacks along the way. Spider mite infestations come to mind. Seriously, if you don't know what they are and you want to raise crops indoors, pray you never get them. You get them outside too, but I now have the confidence that I can save my plants when they're infested. I also know that if I can't save them, I can always start again. It's sad and it can be frustrating, but there's always another opportunity. And there's nothing more rewarding or anything that brings me joy more than seeing my hard work become something wonderful. Like when we had our first babies born on the farm last spring. Watching my broody hens, Norma and Diane, hatch out little baby chicks and watching them take care of them and be amazing mama hens, that was truly priceless. So, is homesteading really worth it? Now that's a question only you can answer for yourself. For me, the benefits far outweigh the drawbacks. But, uh-oh, what is going on? Hang on. For me, the benefits far outweigh the drawbacks, but it is not for the faint of heart. It takes hard work, dedication, and a willingness to learn and to adapt. And I truly believe, having spent 12 years in the military, along with my love of animals and my desire to learn something new and and refine my processes, have made this almost a dream come true. Did I mention that my cows like to jump the fences? Yeah, I'll talk about that in an upcoming video. But if you do decide to take the step to become a homesteader, remember, take your time and plan for the failures, because no matter how smooth things may be going, as Jeff Goldblum says in Jurassic Park, life finds a way. Oh, and have backups, lots and lots of backups. Have I deterred you from wanting to homestead? I really hope I didn't, because the reality is there is nothing set in stone for what you have to have or how you have to do it. There's so many variations, it just takes imagination and motivation. And again, I tend to spend a little more on designing things because I have some physical limitations that I want to make sure that no matter how I feel day to day, I am able to do the things I need to get done around here, even if I'm not feeling 100%. Now, before I go, I just want to say I'd love to hear from you. What do you think about homesteading? Is it something you've considered trying, or do you think it's not for you? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe for more videos on sustainable living and beyond. And also, if I forgot anything, let me know too. Or if you have any questions about something in particular that I haven't mentioned, hit me up, let me know, and I'll talk about it if you want me to talk about it. And thanks again for hanging with me here on Tater Town, and I'll see you soon. Why don't you girls go inside? It's cold, babies, it's cold.
And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you can see more videos that will help you do those things you never thought you could.